Hello guys, I'm Fizzy and welcome back to the AOR GT3 Elite League Season 4 on Project Cars, the PC version of the game. This week we are here at Watkins Glen for round 6 out of 10 in this championship. And for the second race running, we ran into a bit of trouble with the first attempt of running the race. We were a couple of laps into the race and then a lot of drivers suffered game freezes or screen freezes or whatever you want to call it, which meant that we had to restart. However, unlike last time, we decided to improvise a little bit and run a manual rolling start instead of rerunning qualifying itself in order to keep the same positions on the grid. And I have to say, the drivers did well to make that work. Yoki was the around for the first lap, essentially as the safety car, or the pace car, to lead the field on their way, which is what you're currently seeing on the screen right now, the formation lap, essentially as it is. Ahead of what then will be a 35 lap race here at Watkins Glen, giving the drivers around about an hour of racing. And as you can very much see, it is not quite normal conditions either. It's late at night, I believe 8 PM start time, so a kind of an added challenge for the drivers to drive in dark conditions, relying on their headlights to see where they're going. But quickly before we get going here, you can see the drivers lining up in a single file for the race start. I'm just going to go through the main positions in the starting order. So at the front, for pole position in only his second race in the league, is Today, also known as Manu, in the Audi, who took pole position with a lap time of 140.231, which was just under 0.2 of a second ahead of the championship leader, Masa. And then there was another 1/10 of a second down to Kaki, starting in third. Then the second Bentley of Ginger S and the second Aston Martin of TonyR, ahead of the first BMW Z4 of Brownski. So that was the top 6 at the start, and you can see the rest of the order on your left hand side of the screen. But now it's time in just a moment to get underway here for the race, so I'm going to hand you over to the live commentary with myself and Yoki. There he is, Yoki, driving beautifully, coasting that Mercedes. So the next corner here, uphill left-hand hairpin, is where Yoki will blast off towards the pit lane. Today then effectively becomes the pace car to lead the rest of the guys through onto the start-finish straight in a couple of corners time. Yoki will then call the green lights in their game chat for the drivers. You won't be hearing that here, I don't think. But we'll obviously see when all the drivers go. So Yoki should now be in the pits and the race should be starting very shortly. Masa getting very close behind Yoki right at the start here. Let's see when Yoki calls this and when they will start racing. There we go. Here we go across the finish line and we are underway. And sounded like a bit of contact. But further back in the field, there's 3 wide with some roughs going into turn 1. Ginger holding on to 4th position just about from TonyR once again, just like in the first attempt with it. And then they're side by side with Brownski and a Mini Black up the hill through turns 2 and 3. Close racing. Brownski just about holding on with a bit of a wiggle up through those corners with the walls very close as well. You can see beautifully the field navigating their way down the straight here with Mini Black now going up the inside on Brownski through the chicane. Brownski's going to try to hold on there side by side through the chicane. Mini Black carrying the more speed and takes P6 from him. So at the front of the field, no position changes as of yet. Today holding on, but Masa's getting very close now, halfway through the lap. Had to go slightly defensive into the left-hander here. Masa very close as well. And Kaki, the top 3. Once again forming a little bit of a group up ahead. Ginger and Tony are just trying their best to hold on. And because of Brownski and Mini Black's battling, a little gap has now formed behind P5. So Yoki, are you back?
Oh, Matt! Yes, I am back. Matt is just trying to go around the outside of Manu here into this right-hander. Manu, who currently holds the inside line, giving Massa a little bit of squeeze on the exit. Kaki's going to try and get himself involved as well. This is a 3-way fight. We also have Dinda and TonyR sat there lurking in 4th and 5th position, very close. Looks like the field spread is a lot tighter this time round with that manual rolling start. Manu. But yeah, for the moment, Massa is currently holding 6th position, getting very close to the wall once again on the exit there. I think Dinda may have actually clipped it on the exit, but Massa's now trying to pick up the slipstream on Manu, going for the inside move down into towards turn 1. Thinks better of it as Manu covers over to cover the inside line a little bit there. Just trying to hold on to this early lead that it currently holds at the moment. Kaki is currently sat waiting in a third position. He's going to be picking up an almighty slipstream here, and the understeer really kicks in as you come over the crest of the hill there when you're following in the dirty air of the car behind. But Massa's got the slipstream as we come down towards the bus stop chicane. He's going to go to the inside, having a little bit of a look down the inside of Manu. Manu's giving him just about enough space. I think there was almost contact between the two of them. Manu had to take to the grass, so did Massa. He went out wide, and Massa's potentially gone and lost the second place here to Kaki. A little bit of door wheel to wheel rubbing here as he is trying to slip himself up into third position. I believe they may have squeezed each other, and I believe
TonyR is coming as well.
Kaki down into fourth position. Yep, TonyR slipping himself up into third for the moment. He's managed to get himself ahead of Kaki there, and Kaki flashing his lights. Doesn't look too pleased about that move at the moment. Manu's still holding on to first position, and let's just have a quick look there. So yeah, Kaki's currently holding fourth. Mini Black's in fifth. Sorry, Dinder's got to drop down a number of positions. Look like Mini Black's got a little bit of damage to the rear of his car there. He's under threat from Brownskin. He's got Jellyfish for company behind him, as well as the rest of the field.
Dinder's right at the back of the field is P20.
Oh dear, potentially some damage for him. May have possibly pitted. How far back is he exactly? Oh, he's just at the back of the field. So potential.
Had a spin possibly. Obviously, when he spin in the first few corners, so have an incident, then obviously you gotta have a lot of cars passing you because everyone's so close together. But I have to say, the rolling start went pretty well, to be honest. No major issues, and you of course did an excellent job as the safety car. TonyR has a huge wiggle through the first corner. Kaki's taking advantage of that, getting the position on the exit, and he's going to now be ahead going up the hill. So TonyR back to fourth place. He obviously was a bit opportunistic, Tony, but just sitting behind when all the top three were really scrapping into the chicane on the previous lap and after it as well. Oh, as we got a move potentially at the front. This time today holds on into the chicane. Massa not managing to get alongside once again. It was pretty brave from Manu and Massa to go side by side there in the previous lap. Both going slightly off the track as a result, but luckily both still carrying on in the first two positions. So some good racing here, and Kaki trying to get one back on Massa. I don't think Kaki might have been too pleased maybe with the Massa on the previous lap, but I think it was all just close and hard but fair racing as far as I could see anyway. And you can really see how much the top four are now pulling away. Behind them still Mini Black leading that group in P5, and it's going to be side by side actually with a Jellyfish. Has moved himself up to P5 now, getting the better speed down that straight, and is ahead even before the corner. Slightly wide, but manages to keep it on the track to take P5, and you can see there is 7 cars in that group, P5 down to P11 close together. So already some groups forming behind them. It's Blue Rat leading a secondary group, or a third group even at the moment, with Pedro, Nostra and Martin van der Bent for company as well.
Oh, just bringing it back up to the battle for the lead. It looks like Massa's got a relatively good run here at Manu. Massa's going for the inside, coming down towards turn 1. Kaki's right underneath the rear wing of Manu as well. If Massa can stick his car up the inside, which he does, he's managed to slip himself up into P1. Kaki taking full advantage of that move as well, taking the open door, and Manu's going to slip down into third position, now being heavily pressured by TonyR as well. He's currently still holding onto the back of this train for fourth, so Massa slipped himself up into first. Kaki's managed to get himself back up into second position, and he's now going to see if he can potentially make a move at some point on F1 Massa. As Kaki goes running a little bit deep there into the bus stop chicane. That's going to let Manu go through, and he's now also going to let TonyR slip through as well. And I believe that Kaki's now actually going to pick up himself a time penalty. That looks like possibly 5 seconds. He seems to be back underway full speed now, but that's going to cost him his second position quite dearly. Jellyfish is starting to come up towards the back of the train. And then, like you said, we've got quite a substantial gap to Mini Black, who's leading quite a nice train there of, it now looks like 6 cars, headlights, various different drivers. We've got Mini Black at the head of that, with McCowan 7th, Brownski in 8th. And then that'll be Andrex in 9th. Papand has got himself up into 10th position already. Is starting to have a little bit of a look down the inside of Andrex into this next braking zone. He's going for the move. Will he be able to make it cleanly? Andrex gives him a very tight squeeze there on the inside, and Papand had to back out of it and settle back into 10th position for the moment. But Papand obviously very, very eager to work his way up through the field after that qualifying ban, and starting from the back of the grid. He wants to try and recover his race somewhat and try and score as many points as possible and try and get a little bit of damage limitation here at Watkins Glen.
And we got side by side once again for second position. Now Masa's pulled a little bit of gap of that lap, but today now under pressure from TonyR, Masa's teammate. They're going to be side by side through turn 1. Today on the outside, but carrying a good amount of speed though. TonyR with a tight line, still holding on there. They're going to be side by side with the hill with Kaki as well, just behind, trying to get into the mix. Look like TonyR nearly lost the back end there, and that is given today the advantage as they now come down the potentially longest straight on the circuit down towards the chicane. Pretty tricky overtaking place as we've seen. Not the best place to be side by side, because that really loses both drivers a lot of time. This time they're all going single file through there. Today really defending well for second place, but of course the more that he has to keep an eye on TonyR and Kalk in his mirrors, Masa is allowed to romp away out in front. You can just see the gap now for 5 seconds already, in fact, I would say. So it's he's really taking advantage of the clear air he's been given now, and today still being in battles with these guys.
Yeah, Massa's just absolutely taken off into the distance ahead of Manu for the moment, who seems to be holding these guys up. TonyR's throwing some pretty good strong pace at the moment, and so is Kaki. And we've got Jellyfish closing up onto the back of this as well. And on the previous lap, we're actually going to point out that both Mini Black in the Bentley and also Brownski in his Z4 dived into the pit lane. Possibly some potential damage there, so they're now running at the back of the field, which has obviously promoted a number of guys up a couple of positions. Just take a quick look at the standings now. Yeah, so Papan's in 8th, Andrex has now got himself up into 6th ahead of Macau. And yeah, Brownski in 19th, Mini Black in 20th, as we're now actually seeing Manu coming under pressure from...
Oh, it's going to be 3 wide!
And Kaki, 3 wide, coming down towards turn 1. TonyR's got the inside line, he's going to try and make the move. It looks like today's managed to hold on to it somehow, holding into second position. He's got to run out wide, trying to reach the circuit, got into the side of Kaki, who's then subsequently hit TonyR. TonyR's currently holding second for the moment, trying to pick up those 2 guys as Kaki's going down the inside. As it come up over the top of the hill, he's going to slip himself up into second position. TonyR's in 3rd, is now under pressure from Jellyfish behind, and Manu's gone lost out quite horribly when he initially looked like he was going to hold on to second place there. He's slotted down quite far back. I imagine he's probably picked up a time penalty on that, probably for 5 seconds or so. Seemed to have dropped the gap to these guys, which has been really, really unfortunate, from dropping from 1st down into 5th. But Kaki has now got himself up into 2nd. Surely he's going to try and pull away from TonyR and see if he can try and catch F1 Massa and see if he can try and get that win and take it away from Massa, which he seriously needs to do if he needs to try and keep his title hopes up in this championship. Yeah. It doesn't look like TonyR is going to make it an easy job for him. He's still holding onto the back of Kaki quite nicely as they come into this very slow second gear right-hander. It sounded like there was a little bit of contact there to the left of the screen. It doesn't look like it's been any of the top 5. They've all gone through quite nicely. Andrex in 6th position, Papan's in 7th, Silver Arrow's up in 8th, so Pedro's 9th, Nozdra's 10th, Martin van der Bent is in 11th, Mazy's in 12th, Dinda is in 13th, Blue Rat in 14th, Stanovic in 15th, Vice Guy
Silver just lost the position.
AJ.
Actually, Silver Arrow lost out to Pedro.
Ooh.
In the battle for 8th. What's happened to Mikhail?
Mikhail's the one who's got some serious damage, it looks like, to the front of his car. He's now dropped down into 18th position and quite rapidly losing places. He seems to be struggling there, trying to get out of the way of Brownski coming up behind him. I imagine he's just going to crawl back to the pits. It looks like his car has got... Yeah, it looks like he's crabbing a little bit and some serious steering angle issues going on there. So I imagine he's going to dive off into the pits. That's probably the crunch that I heard. And yes, that's exactly what it does. It just dives into the pits. Now who's out in the pits as well? Blue Rat is in the pits. And that would have been your car and my car in the pits as well. Just picking up Maisie in 12th position. He's got Dinda there in 13th place. The green neon, very distinctive in the front grille of that Bentley. Like you said earlier, Silvaro dropping a place to Martin van der Bent. And
he's dropped 2 more now.
Nostra, yeah, as well. Silvaro dropped down into 11th position. What's going on with him?
He's been having some struggle some laps, really. Been on the back foot a little bit. I don't know if he's got any damage, but he seems to have really fallen off the pace a little bit. Just dropped 3 positions in a lap and a half, so clearly he's not quite comfortable with something right this moment in time. At least he's still right in the middle of that pack, so he's with a fighting chance still, and within the point, of course, the top 16 drivers in the race score points for the championship. So yeah, ahead of 8th place, there's a bit of a gap now up to Papan and Andrik, so formed a little duo there, going through the final corner now with 27 laps remaining in the race. At least we've gotten further into the race now without any major issues. Obviously some cars have suffered damage, we assume, seeing as they've been in the pits, and there's not really any other ways to explain why they would have pitted by this early stage than damage. And second, third and fourth spreading out a little bit, you know, based on qualifying pace. They're kind of in the order that you would expect them to be on pace, so unless TonyR or Jellyfish can really step up now and be right on their game, I think Kaki will be looking good for second place. But it's a long race, of course, a lot of factors coming into play. Pit stops will presumably be happening for most drivers at some point for fresh tires, even though we've seen some races previously this season where drivers have opted to do a zero-stop strategy, which has always thrown some spanners in the works.
And Dinda is still currently sat behind him in 11th position. Silverari's going to drop down into 13th place now. He's slipping back quite quickly.
He must have some kind of problems trolling, because he's so far off the pace of the other guys that he was with before, so he must be carrying some kind of issue there. I can't see any other reason why he would suddenly be so far off the pace.
Yeah, I'm seeing about 2.5 seconds on the previous lap between Arrow and the guys in front of him.
Dinda making a move on Maisie. He, well, tried to anyway. He put him under pressure, but Maisie really defended.
Manu's slow.
Oh no! Oh, he's in 7th as well. What is going on with Manu? The camera won't change for me. Yeah, he's okay, still going. But yeah, definitely had another issue there, because he's down in 7th and he was running quite lonely in 5th just a moment ago. So hard to say what happened there.
Potential spin, maybe?
Yeah. This could be a lot of things, couldn't it?
Cut track, yeah.
Presumably a spin, considering he was by himself on the track, so it can't have been an incident with another car.
Yeah, Papan wasn't too far back. I probably would have said about 8 odd seconds or so. Just visually looking at it, it's probably about that sort of distance. And then, yeah, Andrex wasn't too far behind Papan. So, as Pedro goes and kisses the Armco barrier at the top of the hill there as well, you really do suffer some severe understeer when you're following a car going out the top section there, because it's completely flat out when you're in clear air, so you kind of expect the same when you're behind another car, and obviously you want to try and maximise the slipstream for the actual straight, but when you get there, the front just completely washes out and you won't ride unless you back out the throttle and avoid missing the barrier. There's it. Ooh.
Jin just lost some time. I didn't quite see what's happened to him, but he was right on the back of Maisie going into the chicane on this lap, and suddenly he wasn't when the next camera shot came around. He's had some kind of issue there. Almost dropped down to where Silver Arrow is. So unfortunate for Jinja. He was looking like a solid comeback drive for considering he was right at the back of the field after a couple of laps. But a little bit of a setback for him there, as Martin van der Bent is still really pressuring Nostra.
It sounded like they both clipped the wall, but again,
certainly
not
close
really
together now.
seeing much damage.
Oh, again!
Pedro goes and hits the ball coming out through the final corner. Brushes that. That's probably going to put some aero damage on his car. Trying to see if we can get a camera angle where we can see just how much damage that's done to his Cadillac on the outside there. It's quite hard to tell when it's dark and the car is mainly painted black. It's pretty difficult to see the scuffs and scrapes on the side of the car, but yeah, going to the question that you were asking just now, Fizzy. Even though it's an hour's difference, it can have a pretty big effect on the tyre pressures. Obviously, the cooler conditions make it harder for the drivers to maintain their temperatures and the tyre pressures. Obviously, starting in slightly warmer conditions, it's a little bit easier to maintain them. And obviously, as the sun completely disappears, the track rapidly drops in temperature, so it's not like when it's during the day when the temperature is a little bit more subtle. Kind of once you lose the sunlight on it, it drops pretty quickly, so within a couple of laps the track conditions can have completely changed. And obviously if the drivers haven't got the right tyre pressures for that, it will have quite a different effect to the car's handling. It will handle different, and obviously that knocks your confidence because you're wondering why it's not handling the same as before, and then that just kind of snowballs until the point where you're slow.
Yeah, I know the feeling. It can be, from a driver's perspective, of course. I did drive like you myself in this league for several seasons, and it can be a bit frustrating sometimes to like know what is going wrong when you feel like something isn't quite right, and a lot of things that plays into it, of course. Is there any other part of the setup that kind of gets affected by things like the weather and stuff like that?
Aero does as well. Cooler conditions means thicker air density, which means more aero efficiency, so you can generally run lower wings with that. So currently just watching Papan and Andrex in the pits. Dinder's in the pits as well. There's also actually a second roof in the pits and a third roof in the pits as well. So quite a few guys diving into the pits. Yeah, quite a few of them diving into the pits. Currently watching Papan rejoin the track in 11th place. He looks like to have a fairly smooth exit coming out, rejoining the circuit. Picking up Bransky now, he's currently in 10th place. He did make a pit stop earlier on, remember? So he's currently holding on to that 5th position at the moment, potentially.
That sounds a bit excessive, but it is not.
Manu's having another spin. Manu's had another spin.
Oh, where is
off. I was just watching Maisie, and just as they went through the corner, there was an Audi R8 parked on the outside there. So
wow,
today's gone and dropped down into 9th position, which, man, that must be fairly frustrating for him. Hopefully he can settle back down and get into a rhythm again and try and recover his race somewhat. But yeah, he seems to be struggling at the moment. And just having a quick flick through. TonyR's now in the pits. She's promoted Jellyfish up into 3rd, who's still out. Kaki's still out on track. Massa's still out as well, and has now actually started lapping people in the field as well. He's got one of the BMW M3s behind him and another one just in front.
So yeah, we are of course now getting into the territory where it's no longer weird that people are into the pits, because we are pretty much at the middle stage of the race, and you'd expect people by this time to come in for a few, not fuel stop. Most people start with a fuel tank of fuel, but tire change to get some fresh grip in those tires. And you know, it remains to be seen again whether anyone will try to play the zero stop strategy, try to gain some positions on the track and hold on to them by just saving tires and holding on. You know, Bransky's an interesting one, considering he pitted so early on for damage repairs, we think, as to whether he will, you know, not go in again, which would nearly be a zero stop strategy for him, you know, minus a few laps.
Yeah.
Would of course be preferable for him if he can manage to do that. He's now up in 10th, I believe it was. We now also have Massa, the race leader, into the pits at the front of the field. So, will Kaki also goes in? Will Jellyfish go in? We shall get the answer.
Massa's in, Kaki's in.
Yeah. So it seems like most people at the moment are going to do pit stop in this race.
Jellyfish is as well. So Jellyfish dives into the pits in 3rd place. That should put TonyR back up into 3rd place when everything settles down. And TonyR was looking very close to the Maisie, coming into the 2nd to last corner now. I imagine he's just going to follow him through for the moment. Maisie potentially going to be diving into the pits here on this lap. Yes, it's hanging tight to the right on the exit there. So TonyR getting a clean run down the start finish straight. Martin van der Bent dives into the pits as well. Like we said, Jellyfish is in there. Kaki is now back out on in second place, along with Ethel Massa just up the road in front of him in 1st.
Yeah, Bransky's up to 5th.
Yeah, like I said, that 5th position.
Yeah. That is unbelievable. Maybe it was tactical that he pitted early. You never know. Maybe just want to get himself out of the traffic and get some clear air and just push, because clearly he's gained a lot of time on the other cars he was around at the time he pitted, but you never really know. The thing is, though, for me, I cannot see any visual damage on that BMW Z4, and based on...
I can see a tiny bit.
Tiny scrape, nothing major. Based on previous races, obviously the damage doesn't visually fix itself from in the spectator mode when drivers pit. So you never know what his thinking was, but either way, it's worked out for him at the moment. But he's going to have to deal with a bit more tyre wear now than the other guys towards the end of the race.
Manu is in the pits.
Ooh. Race over for him by the looks of it.
Yes,
same can be said for Nesterovic and also Mikhail, who have all parked it in the pits, it seems. I see Nesterovic actually in the Twitch chat saying that he got hit by someone in the back, and that resulted into him hitting Maisie. They got stuck to each other, and Nesterovic was rolling with 40% air damage and decided to pit early. And then he got stuck in the pits, apparently. That's why he's still sitting there. That's very unfortunate for Nesterovic.
Yeah, that is a shame. But
you gotta hope that's not the case for today as well, because he wasn't quite having the race he wanted after qualifying on pole, but still, he was still in a decent position. But now, just like Mikhail in the pits still.
Yeah, that is a shame for Manu. I can't see a lollipop guy in front of him, so that does lead me to suspect that he has gone and retired from the race, which is a shame. He was looking so promising for him earlier on in the race with a very, very good points. So obviously qualified in first, wasn't quite able to hold on at the front. He did hold on for a good few laps, but eventually Massa and Kaki managed to work their way past, and yeah, that three-way run down towards turn 1 was very impressive, and Massa actually goes and clips the Armco barrier at the top of the hill there. Potential damage for him, I can't really see too much from this angle. Any damage to his car will probably be able to see as he comes into the bus stop chicane and flies past the camera here. I still can't really see. It's a little bit too dark. It's a little bit too dark to really pick up.
He's still going at a pretty good pace, but
any small damage. Yeah, I doubt that will affect him too much. Kaki's kind of following through in second. Kaki's actually gone and done a 140.6. What's Massa's fastest lap? Kaki's currently his fastest lap at the moment, which was his previous lap as well. Actually, both of them, their fastest laps were on the previous lap, are actually half a second between the two. So Kaki on the charge.
It's interesting because Kaki doing some single laps that seem to be on better pace than Massa, but he's still not really gaining a great deal. You can see both of them just about in the same shot there as Massa turned around that left-hand hairpin. But the gap is not really increasing too much towards Kaki. So maybe he's he has the pace to be faster, but it's maybe a little bit more inconsistent.
Yeah, Massa just running out a little bit wide there onto the curb. Same again, coming out through the final corner. Let's see what his previous lap was here. 141.175. Kaki goes and does a 140.650. So again, that's another good
catching
half
a little
second.
Yep.
Yeah, half a second a lap. He's got 14 laps to go. I don't know if you can see a delta time off your stream, Fizzy.
6 seconds, it says, just as I looked at it 20 seconds ago. That would be in real time, as we actually got a battle for fourth. I noticed Brownski is really caught up in the back of Jellyfish.
Yes.
So that might be an interesting one to look out for. These guys, I can't remember quite where they qualified. I feel like they were pretty close on the grid, not quite up at the top. So both of them have gained some positions in the race so far. Brownski's going to have to try and get that slipstream on the run down towards the chicane. The BMW Z4 will be very good going up the hill there. That's Martin, driver. Jellyfish forced to go slightly defensive here. Brownski with that, the Z4 not known for its fast straight line speed, and does not quite have the power there to pull alongside into the chicane, meaning Jellyfish will be able to hold onto that. But these are the kind of corners where the Z4 might just excel. You can see Brownski really closing up to the back of him, going on the exit, and it's going to go side by side, but Jellyfish again defending the inside, and it's going to have that covered unless Brownski can get a better run with a slight cutback, but it's a pretty long corner, so hard to get a proper cutback through there, and still Jellyfish remaining in fourth position. So it's good to see. It felt like there was a few laps there where there wasn't really too much close battling, Yoki, but now we got a battle on our hands for fourth.
Yes, we do, and it also means that Papan in sixth position is going to be closing up onto the back of these guys as well, especially as they're going side by side. going into various corners. Just looking at their lap times, Papan was actually a good 2.5 seconds quicker than these two on the previous lap, so rapidly closing the gap down. You can see that visually as well as the roof is popping into the background of these shots here that we're seeing as they come through the last two corners. I imagine Browski's going to try and get a decent run coming out the exit of this final turn to try and pick up the slipstream of the Aston Martin in front of him. And there you can see the roof of Papan coming up in towards the back of these two. Doesn't quite look like that Browski is going to be close enough to make a move down into turn one. So once again, it's just going to tuck in underneath the rear wing of the Aston Martin, try and get a good exit and try and pick up the slipstream coming down the back straight. We saw he had a pretty good run last time, forcing Jellyfish to go defensively again. It looks like he's got another pretty decent run. This time he didn't have to pull out of the slipstream and take the slightly longer route. He's got a little bit more of a distance this time. And it looks like for the moment Jellyfish is just about going to hold on to fourth place. They're going to follow each other through the bus stop chicane once again. This is a very, very strong corner for the Z4, taking a very, very wide entry and trying to sweep back in towards the middle of the corner. Browski this time going for the inside line, trying to make the lunge down the inside. Jellyfish is giving him room to go side by side through this long left-handed corner, coming very, very close together. I believe they do make contact and just about manage to avoid the wall. Browski is going to slip himself.
Oh, and it's Papan! I don't know where.
Papan just dived in, trying to pick up the pieces in this battle, making contact with Browski and slipped himself up into fifth place. I told you that Papan was very, very rapidly closing up onto the back of these two guys, making that diving lunge, and it looks like Browski, he got a little bit of a wiggle there just as he was starting to turn the car into the corner there. Papan now right up on the rear wing of Jellyfish. So Papan showing some very, very early pace at the moment. I'm not too sure what I completely lost my train of thought, sorry.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm just thinking about whether I was I'm not sure whether that move by Papan and Browski, I'm not sure whether I should call that opportunistic or a little bit aggressive, because I certainly don't think Browski really saw him coming there, considering he had all his focus on Jellyfish that had just gone side by side to the corner previous, and suddenly Papan just popped up on his inside into the next corner, taking advantage. But yeah, they made contact because probably Browski, you know, as you'd expect, wouldn't really see him coming there, because he did come from quite far back. But Browski now trying to pressure him into the chicane, but the Z4 just not getting, you know, it's a bit difficult in the Z4 sometimes. That doesn't quite have the straight line speed as some of the other cars, because you can get really close through the corners, and then once you get onto the straight and actually to try and get a move into the next corner, you're not really gaining anymore. So Browski struggling a little bit with his car potentially to make this move stick. Got so close on Jellyfish, but just got caught out in the end, and Papan now being the man to try and get past the Aston Martin.
Kaki just going for a couple of lap drivers at the moment, still closing the gap to Massa, who has picked up the pace a little bit. His fastest lap is now a sub 141 with a 140.973. That gap is visually closing, but resuming the battle for fourth place. It looks like that Papan has got a pretty decent run here at Jellyfish. Will he make a move coming into the next braking zone? He's going for it now. He's actually diving down the inside. Jellyfish is going to have to give him room, yielding the apex there as Papan tries to hang tight towards the inside. He's going to have the outside for this next corner. If Jellyfish forces Papan out wide and may potentially give Browski the look to the inside, but at the moment it doesn't look like Browski's close enough. Papan getting a pretty decent run coming out of there, though he's not quite going to be going side by side coming into the second to the last corner, and Jellyfish holds on to fourth place for the moment. Coming into the final corner now, both of them getting very, very close to each other, coming out through the exit of that and onto the start finish straight. Papan's going to be trying to pick up a pretty decent slipstream as Jellyfish moves over to the right to try and cover the inside line. Papan going for the inside now, darting back across as he was initially looking to the outside. Jellyfish moving a little bit shy of the apex there, that could play into Papan's hands quite nicely. All the while Browski is still sat on the of these guys, just waiting for that perfect opportunity, looking very, very close to the back of Papan as he comes actually out the top of the hill there. It's going to be right underneath the rear wing as they come down this back straight towards the bus stop chicane. But once again, the Z4 not really able to hold on to the Papan's car as he goes a little bit deep into the bus stop chicane. Has actually gone and lost it, flicking through the wrong set of drivers there. He's going to spun off over to the right hand side of the circuit. Hopefully he can rejoin safely. and not affect any other drivers coming very, very close there to Martin van der Bent. But Papan's gone and lost out massively there under braking, has gone and dropped down into 8th position behind Martin van der Bent, and I believe that was Andrex as well, who slipped through up into 6th place. So
yes, indeed.
Yeah, Papan just losing the rear end of his car under braking.
Yeah, that was a weird incident. He might have just pushed it a little bit too hard into the braking zone. I feel like he ran a little bit too deep, maybe lost another curb, but yeah, it could have also been that he started losing grip in the braking zone and just tried to save it, couldn't quite do it, ended up sliding out to the off-track. Luckily for him, quite a big off-track there. I think he made very slight contact with the wall, but I don't think that'll affect him all too much. But of course, he's lost a lot of time, dropped himself right out of that battle that he did so well to get into, and now has to pass these cars all over again. Martin van der Bent and Andrex now the next 2 targets for him. Let's just quickly see. Oh, Brownski now still pressuring Jellyfish.
Yep.
But once again, the Aston Martin just seems untouchable on the straight. It's hard to, you don't really know what setups these guys are running, but we know, the Aston Martin tends to be faster on the straight than the Z4. Brownski, just look at how much he's closing air up the hill through these fast corners. He gets right up to the back of Jellyfish, and then he just can't get close enough into the chicane. He gets up the hill and then stops gaining, so it must be a little bit frustrating to be Brownski right now. But Jellyfish doing everything he needs to keep 4th position. Papan and Brownski both tried for several laps now, but no one can move that Aston Martin off P4. But they've got a backmarker, a BMW M4, not too far up the road, so remains to be seen whether it should get nicely out of the way, but you never know. As Brownski once again getting very close, but just not enough. So it's a similar story for Brownski. You just have to bide his time. Just as long as he keeps the pressure on, though, you never know. Jellyfish might make a little mistake at some point.
Yeah, this next corner is probably going to be his best opportunity anywhere around the circuit. It's basically this final sector that they're in now, as actually it looked like Jellyfish ran a little bit deep there out through the exit. Brownski holding a reasonably tighter line, but this is V8 versus V12 power, so quite substantial difference in power output between the 2 engines. Obviously the Aston Martin with the V12 having the bigger advantage there coming down the straight, but I imagine Brownski's taken out a fair amount out of his rear wing to try and maximise the speed down the straights, whilst obviously maintaining the aero efficiency of the Z4. And he's not again close enough to have a look down the inside. Jellyfish much closer to the inside curve this time, hooking up the apex quite nicely. He's trying to open up the corner a little bit for himself, coming out over the top of the hill here. Brownski running a slightly different line. Let's actually pull up alongside. He's going to be on the outside. I'm going to go around the outside through that right-hander there. He's got to dive in underneath the rear wing of Jellyfish to try and pick up the slipstream at some point. He's not going to be able to make the move around the outside into the bus stop chicane. That's very, very difficult. You can go side by side and you can pull off a move around the outside there. You just got to be far enough alongside that they have to basically completely yield the second apex, the left part. That means they have to take a tighter line through the first if you both want to get through there cleanly. But this is Brownski's best opportunities. He's actually got a pretty decent exit coming out of there. He's not going to be able to get alongside Jellyfish though coming into this right-hander. If he gets a decent drive out of here, and if traffic does become a factor and comes into play, he may potentially be able to make a move on Jellyfish, but he's only got 7 laps remaining. As once again, as it looks like Jellyfish has gone a little bit deep there, a little bit shy of the apex in that second gear right-hander, now coming up into this long, rather tricky left-hander. The car just washes out from you, as the M3 did look like he was going to pull over initially there, but he's
going to have to need to do it soon.
Yes, so I imagine he probably will on the start-finish straight. I imagine he'll probably pull over to the right coming out the exit of this corner and back off the throttle to let these 2 guys through. We can see in the background there Andrex and I believe that is Papan.
They're not far behind actually. They're a lot closer to the 4th place group than I thought. Maybe those guys have slowed each other down a little bit. Jellyfish is constantly having Brownski in his mirrors, not quite been able to focus fully on the pace of his lap times. But Papan, so Papan's made a move then on Martin van der Bent, of course. That he dropped behind when he spun, and now has got Andrex to try and navigate in that Cadillac. As we can see in the foreground now, the BMW M4 letting everyone through now, just basically parking it in front of the chicane, letting all the 5 cars through at the same time. You know, it took its time, but at least once it did it pretty nicely indeed. As Brownski dropped a little bit off the back of Jellyfish actually. So he's not closer to the group with Andrex, so he's made potentially a little mistake through the chicane there.
Yeah, so I imagine probably trying to battle and push hard to try and get past Jellyfish. He's probably scrubbed off a lot of the tread on his tyres and now possibly be starting to suffer with some tyre degradation in this stage of the race. He did pit very early on in the race and has run a lot longer than the other guys around him on the current set of tyres that they're on, which is probably allowing the other guys to close up and form what is soon to be a nice 5-car train. You can see them all in the picture there actually. They're all starting to close up onto the back of each other. I'm wondering if Jellyfish is actually starting to struggle with his tyres at this stage of the race. Obviously he made the pit stop, but potentially some wrong tyre pressures may be affecting and coming into play. We can actually see Andrex here is closing up onto the back of Brownski as well. These two guys very close and have been racing each other for a very long time in the Apex Racing League. Both of these drivers being veterans here at AOR. And it looks like Andrex has got a pretty decent run coming out the top of the hill. The Cadillac speed should be pretty good, and he may potentially be able to make a move coming down towards the bus stop chicane. It's like that Brownski's hanging towards the middle of the track very early here to try and cover the inside line and make sure that Andrex isn't going to make a move. This is obviously allowing Papand and Martin van der Bent to close up onto the back of this train as well, and also gives a little bit more breathing room to Jellyfish out in front of them. As just watch these guys come through.
Tell you what, Yoki.
Very nice. What's up, Fizzy?
I think Kaki is closing in on Masa. He's only about 2-3 seconds behind now. You know, it's only 5 laps to go in the race now. So it might just run out of laps in the end, but he's certainly be closing the last couple of laps. Once again, Masa, previous lap 40.9. Kaki did the 40.6, as he seems to have done every time we check his lap times. So he's found his consistency then. And you can see the two getting very close together for the race lead. So it's something we just need to keep an eye on. Whether Kaki can close that gap further. But of course, the action going on still with a 5-car train. Oh, and that was side by side with Andrex. Yeah, he made a move. That is not a place you usually see moves being made.
That is very impressive. Good stuff there by Andrex, and also very respectful from Brownski. He may actually potentially lose out of second position here. As Papan is having a pretty good run, trying to look down the inside into this first time. Who is going to be the latest of the late breakers?
Whoa!
Very late, making contact with Andrex. Both of them going out wide. This should allow Brownski to slip back past.
Oh dear Lord!
These two guys, they go 3 wide almost as they come up towards into the entry of this hill section. Both of them, Papand and also Andrex, still side by side. A little bit of contact. Papand running out wide, hitting the Armco barrier. This is allowing Martin van der Bent to go around the outside and potentially gain himself a position. But he's on the outside, coming down towards the bus stop chicane. But he's actually gone and made the move already before they get to the braking zone. So, some very intense racing here by a number of guys. Some bumper to bumper, wheel to wheel racing. A little bit of door rubbing going on here and there as well by the guys as they're trying to fight for all the possible ground that they can hold on to and try and maintain the positions that they're currently running in. This has made Jellyfish's job rather nice and easy, kind of acting as a rear gunner for the 2 Aston Martins ahead of him. Has now got himself a fair amount of breathing room to Brownski behind, but yeah, that all stemmed from a fantastic move Andrex on Brownski coming into the second to last corner. If you do get a very good run coming out of this left-handed hairpin, which they're now coming up into, it does present you with an opportunity for a move, as it looked like Martin van der Bent was possibly having to yield there to Papan. Just trying to pick up the camera now. Where are you? There we go. Papan didn't quite manage to make the move stick, and it didn't look like Andrex was able to get another run at Brownski. For the moment, Papan is actually going to spawn off into the wall onto the left-hand side of the circuit. We've got Andrex and Brownski going side by side. Papan staying out for the moment, but it looks like he's now got substantial damage to the front of his car. Probably got a fair amount of steering lock. Andrex is actually going for the move down the inside of Brownski. Each other giving giving each other plenty of room. It looks like Andrex has pretty much got the move done and dusted. Martin van der Bent is now trying to get into the action, has managed to slip himself up into front of Brownski, up into 6th position as well, as they come up the hill now and down towards this back straight. So Brownski losing out 2 positions in 2 corners.
Wow, this is some incredible racing we're seeing right here. Brownski losing out a lot, dropping 2 positions there, down to 7th place now. Martin van der Bent suddenly bringing himself back into the mix. He seemed to be, a little bit out of the running when Papen passed him, and he couldn't quite hold on to him before. But now he's up to 6th again, and looking good in this race. As you said, Jellyfish being given a bit of a breathing room now, with all the guys battling behind him instead of with him now. As we just check quickly on the top 2, Kaki still not managing to get quite as close as he needs to Master.
Exactly the same.
And once again, he's on a 40.6. Jesus, yeah. Kaki. He's super consistent right now. TonyR has done a 41.6 in 3rd position. And yeah, Master again, a 40.9. So he's only dropped 3/10. So obviously, if Master, even though Kaki keeps banging in those 40.6s, if Master can keep doing 40.9s, then he will be able to get to the finish line just about with his car in front, because we got 2.5 laps only to go in this race. And Kaki has driven really, really superbly after getting away from that huge scrap at the start of the race. But you gotta wonder whether he'll have time to finish the job on Master. Either way, back to 5th position, where Andrex is still having Martin van der Bent all over the back of him. And Brownski dropping off a little bit now behind them. And you can see there's a lot of cars joining in back there as well. All this battling in that train from 4th place.
Jellyfish has clipped the wall at the top of the hill there, and I was going to say Andrex is actually visually closing the gap to Jellyfish as well, now that he's gone past Brownski. I believe Brownski could probably be suffering with some damage to his car possibly, and also some tyre degradation, as Andrex did go a little bit deep there in the bus stop chicane, which allowed Martin van der Bent to close up onto the back of him. But Andrex has recovered and still hasn't lost all that much time to Jellyfish, as Jellyfish looked like he got a little bit wiggly there coming into the turning point of the corner, and this is again allowing Andrex to close up onto the back of his car. So the race certainly isn't over for 4th position yet, as now Andrex is right behind the Aston Martin of Jellyfish, certainly looking the stronger out of the 2. Martin van der Bent also lurking there as well, just behind Andrex, wanting to get a piece of the action to try and see if he can gain some potential positions. Martin van der Bent seems to do very, very well around this circuit, and was holding a very good position in the previous race last season. He seems to be doing a pretty good job in 6th position as well, potentially a 5th or maybe even a 4th if you can pull off an amazing move and take 2 cars at once. There's contact there between Andrex and Jellyfish as they came into the final corner. Andrex having to back out of it a little bit and let Jellyfish go to not gain an advantage. This is allowing Martin van der Bent to actually get alongside Andrex as they come into the first turn now. Andrex is on the outside as he gives a little bit of a squeeze there to Martin van der Bent. He's just having to yield the position to Andrex for the moment. Wasn't quite able to steal that away from him. As actually looking back as well, Brownski is under threat from Papan once again as he goes and clips the wall. They're going side by side as they come through the top section here up the hill, and now I believe that's Pedro actually wanted to get in on the action as well. These 2 guys going side by side, both of them probably suffering with a fair amount of damage as we come down this back straight. As it looks like Pedro is on the brakes going down the back straight, and Brownski has actually gone and yielded the position to Pedro, but Pedro ran a little bit deep there into the bus stop chicane and has now got Maisie all over the back of him. Is that all actually kicking off in this last lap or so? Just jumping back to Martin van der Bent with Andrex and Jellyfish just in front of him. Kaki is actually very, very close to the back of Massa as well, as they come now onto the start-finish straight. There's battles all over the place. I'm not really too sure where we should be looking. I'm going to stay with this battle for first for the moment, as Kaki is trying to apply the pressure to F1 Massa in this last half a lap. See if he can potentially steal that first position away by forcing Massa into a mistake. At the moment, Massa is holding his own and holding his ground, and seems to be keeping the Aston Martin on the track and firmly between the white lines to hold on to that first position. Kaki is probably pushing like absolutely crazy to see if he can get any closer to the back of Massa to try and capitalise on any potential opportunity that Massa is going to give to Kaki. It will obviously be accidental, of course, but it's just a few more corners to go as these two guys are going to come across, looking like they'll be finishing very, very close together. And at the moment, Massa is currently holding the advantage in first position, but Kaki is right there now, coming up onto the rear of Massa's car. Just 2 more corners to go. Will Kaki be able to get a good run coming out the final corner and potentially pick up a slipstream coming down towards turn 1? I don't think he's quite close enough to capitalise on that. F1 Massa coming out the final corner now, using all of the curb on the exit there as he comes across the start finish line to take this win at Watkins Glen, almost on the grass there. Coming over in first, Kaki in second. TonyR is running in a rather lonely third position at the moment. It looks like Jellyfish is holding on to fourth as a jump back to them. Andrex and also Martin van der Bent in fifth and sixth positions. They're going to be trying to pressurise Jellyfish in these final stages, as Jellyfish having to go a little bit defensive as we come into the corner. Andrex looking to the inside, but not quite able to get his car up alongside, but it's going to allow himself to tuck up a little bit underneath Jellyfish as he had to go out wide, but it's going to compromise him. And now Martin van der Bent is actually trying to go along the inside into this rather difficult braking zone that's very, very slow. He's got the inside advantage here. Andrex trying to hold it around the outside. He's going to have the inside for the next corner, which is the main one that is going to count. Will he be able to hold on to fifth position for the moment with Jellyfish just in front of him? So very good clean racing by these guys at the moment. Jellyfish just holding on to fourth. Martin van der Bent once again having a look down the inside of Andrex into the penultimate corner there, coming into the final turn now. Jellyfish is going to come across the line in fourth position, and then it's going to be Andrex, then Martin van der Bent finishing as they were. Some very, very good racing by those guys there. Picking up Papan now as he comes across the start finish line with Maisie just behind him, then Brownski and Pedro literally just behind, and Dinda also getting very close onto the back of those two drivers in front of him. And just trying to pick up to see who is where after basically the rest of the results. Nostra comes home after Dinda. Silva Arrow's just gone across to the start-finish line. I believe AJ is probably the next person. Then Mini Black are basically just waiting for the game to try and sort itself out and put all the drivers in the correct positions. But
wow. It says Kaki's won the race at the moment, but I don't think he did, because quite clearly on our screen it was Massa crossing the line first.
Yeah, we saw that going first, so yeah, we'll obviously have to make sure that we classify those guys correctly. Obviously TonyR.
Man, what a race that was. That was insane. Unfortunate for Kaki, he couldn't quite get a job done. It was such a good race for him. Once he got clear air in second place, charged after Massa for that whole race, got so incredibly close. A couple of more laps and maybe he would have had a chance to make a move for the lead. But Massa just about holding on. And battles all through the field really, apart from TonyR, who seemed to be pretty lonely in the third for most of it. But the battle for fourth and the position behind that was just insane, with loads of cars just coming in, going side by side, battling hard for position. I think Brownski and Papand, two old rivals, making contact on a few occasions. Remains to be seen how pleased they will be with that one. Brownski losing out a little bit, considering was in fifth place after the pit stops, challenging for fourth. He's down in ninth at the finish line. Papand in seventh as well, after challenging for fourth briefly. Andrex and Martin van der Bent taking advantage of their struggles though. Fifth and sixth solid finishes for them. I think that's the best finish of the season for both of those guys, actually. And you guys, of course, suffering problems in the Sterovich. Mikhail today, who started on pole, unfortunately ending the race early. All 20 cars still in the server though, at least. So even though everyone didn't quite make it to the checkered flag, at least nice to see no one disconnected, and that we didn't get a game freeze this time, so we actually got the race going with that manual rolling start that you led so well, Yorkie.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do that again in the future. That was quite a lot of fun. Obviously there's various areas for improvement to make the rolling start a little bit more exciting. Hopefully something that we can bring to you guys in the stream for next season. But I have to say, very, very good race. A lot of action that we saw there pretty much throughout the entirety of the race. It did go a little bit quiet towards the middle. There was a few laps there where there wasn't really much going on, but then Brownski and Jellyfish liven things back up for us, and obviously everyone else getting involved as well. Just made for some very exciting battles.
Fantastic. And next week we will be back at the same time, 8 p.m. UK time, you know, barring any delays. You never know what will happen with this game, really, as to whether we can get underway at the time or not. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but as usual, though, we should have some more racing action for you guys. And next time we are, at many people's favorite track in the world, Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps.
Spa.
And interestingly, it'll be 26 laps there. With some interesting, for the first time ever, there's going to be 2 weather slots, and the second of which will be random weather. That's the first time ever in the GT3 League, and that could go any way. You know, the race starts off with light cloud, so nothing too fancy in terms of the weather. It's also a midday race, but you know, you never know then what will happen with the random. It might just be super boring and just nothing happens at all because it remains clear weather. With that slot, but it could also be turned into ultimate storm on the second part of the race. Thunderstorm, everything could go wrong. Yeah. So, yeah, this time next week, 8 p.m. on Wednesday, we will see you back for Spa. Until then, guys, hope you enjoy yourself, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.